All right, I'll call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. With an introduction, to all persons interested and affected by the action of Zoning Board of Appeals, you're hereby notified pursuant to Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and all amendments thereto that a public hearing on the following appeals will be held tonight, Wednesday, February 12th, in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room on the second floor of the Town of Barnstable Building, 367 Main Street, Hyannis, Massachusetts. We'll first take a call to order with introduction of board members. Herb Bodenseek.
Present.
Paul Pinard is absent. Larry Hurwitz.
Present.
Mark Hanson.
Present.
Aaron Webb.
Present.
Rodney Tavano is absent. Natalie Pittenger.
Here.
And Manny Alves.
Present.
And I am Jacob Dewey. Notice of recording. This meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, please make their presence known. Seeing none, we don't have any minutes tonight. We have one continuance tonight that we're gonna, or we have two actually. We're gonna do first, and then we do have to go into executive session for hopefully not too long. Appeal number 2024-039, 25 Falmouth Road LLC has filed an appeal of an administrative official's decision in accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 7, 8, and 15, and Section 240-88 of the Barnstable zoning ordinance. The appellant is appealing the decision of the building commissioner in issuing building permit BLDC 22-227, which is dated September 17, 2024. The permit was initially denied pending the receipt of a narrative to explain the expansion of the mechanical bays on the property. The applicant's position is that the permit fails to take into account evidence and documentation from the town of records and files which conflict with the determination to issue the building permit. The subject property is located at 95 Falmouth Road, Hyannis, Mass, as shown in Assessor's Map 311. It's parcel 073. It's located in the Highway HB and Residence B RB zoning district. This has been continued from November 13, 2024 and January 8, 2025, and there are no members assigned. Concurrently, appeal number 2024-040, 25 Falmouth Road LLC has filed an appeal of an administrative official's decision in accordance with MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, 8, 15, and Section 240-88 of the Barnstable zoning ordinance. The appellant is appealing the decision of the building commissioner in a letter dated September 4, 2024. The appellant believes the determination fails to take into account evidence and documentation from the town records and files which conflict with the determination and do not address the concerns raised as set forth in the appellant's enforcement letters and correspondence. The subject property is located at 95 Falmouth Road and 123 Falmouth Road, Hyannis, Mass, as shown in Assessor's Map 311, parcels 073 and 078. Lots are located in the Highway Business HB and Residence B RB zoning district. This again continued from November 13th, 2024 and January 8th, 2025, and no members have been assigned. Attorney Kenny. No, go for it. Oh, turn your mic on.
Is this on?
No.
The green light's on, so there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for reading those into the record. For the record, my name is John Kenyon, attorney at the law office in Centerville, and we're the party requesting the continuance on behalf of our clients. This matter's been continued a couple of times. Attorney Mike Ford is here. He represents 25 Falmouth Road LLC, the appealing party on both matters. And we filed a response to the submission by Attorney Ford back a while ago. Mike didn't get it until I think the day before, so he asked for some continuance so he could have a time to write a response to our submittal. And then it was agreed that we would be given sufficient time to respond to whatever he submitted. And we received, for various reasons, we received the latest submittal from Attorney Ford's office Friday afternoon around 3 o'clock. We have another lengthy matter on tonight, so we're asking for a continuance, and I'm asking until April 9th. I think it's a matter that should be heard in person, and I have conflicts until April 9th, which is the first in-person meeting that I can be here, so I'm asking for the continuance to April 9th.
Okay. And Attorney Ford's here or no? Yeah. I don't. Again, I mean, we have these rules in place, and I don't really know how this applies to our rules for continuances, because the appellant is actually, is Attorney Ford, correct?
Correct.
But you're asking for the continuance.
Yes, and at the last hearing, or before this matter really even got opened, we were told that we would be given an opportunity to have respond at least 10 days, and we have not had the 10 days, so.
Okay.
And that was, I think, spoken perhaps by you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't attend the hearing. My associate, Attorney Nickerson, attended, but we were told we would have at least 10 days to review and respond, and we just got it on Friday.
Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions?
As long as we're clear on April 9th, I make a motion to approve the continuance till April 9th.
All right, so we need a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of continuing both items 2024-039 and 2024-040 to April 9th, 2025?
Aye. Aye. In favor.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right. Appeal number 2023-010, Arista/Wendy's LLC. Executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation strategy with respect to the case in the Land Court 24 MISC 00088 by Arista Wendy's LLC for the property at 715 West Main Street, Hyannis. Is appealing the denial of a special permit to construct a drive-through window at Wendy's fast food restaurant, if the chair determines that open session should be detrimental to the board's litigation position. I've made the determination to declare that an open meeting discussion would have detrimental effect on litigation process, litigation position of the ZBA. And so I would make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
I guess we need to roll call vote this. Herb Bodenseek,
In favor?
Larry Hurwitz,
In favor.
Mark Hansen,
I'm in favor.
Aaron Webb,
In favor.
Natalie Pittenger,
In favor.
Manny Alves,
In favor.
and I'm also in favor. So we will go into executive session and return to the remaining orders of the day. All right, we will return to open session, the zoning board of appeals meeting for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Our next order of business is appeal number 2024-044. Richard Sunderland has applied for a special permit pursuant to section 240-94B, nonconforming use. The applicant seeks relief to codify a pre-existing nonconforming use, auto repair, at the property. The subject property is located at 970 Main Street, West Barnstable, Massachusetts, as shown on Assessor's Map 156 is parcel 026. It's located in the West Barnstable Village Business District, the WBVBD. This was continued from January 8th, 2025, and no members were assigned. So sitting on this tonight will be our regular members, myself, Herb Bodenseek, Mark Hansen, Aaron Webb, and Larry, do you want to sit on this? And Larry Hurwitz. Our Attorney Lawler, to you.
Good evening. David Lawler, attorney on behalf of Rick Sunderland, the owner of the property and the applicant here. Could you just pull the site plan up? Thank you. There's a bit of a history with this property. Back in 2002, actually it was back in 2001 when it started, there was a issuance of a violation by the building inspector with respect to overuse of the property. And there was a hearing on that occurred on or about October 26, 2022, where this board supported the building inspector's decision that the use at that time was an overburdening of the property. And at that time, there was a different tenant there, and at any given day, there were up to 50 or so cars at the property, the real issue here is it's kind of a strange situation, because I've filed under the to expand a non-conforming use. Part of the decision in 2022 was that this board did determine that there is a non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming use at the property as an auto body shop. So that it's entitled to be an auto body shop. The question is really what level of use can be at the property. And there's going to be, I know there's going to be a lot of people here who have sent letters and have, objections to certain things with respect to this property. But the real issue is that historically, other than the violation, what is the historic use of the property? And in particular, what, we can do to the property to make it usable, have specific guidelines that can be followed, that the building department and other enforcement agencies will know exactly what should or should not be here, and provide some areas or a lot of areas where the property becomes more attractive than what's presently there, and and under its present use. There's no question it can be used as an auto body shop. The question is really the extent of it. Now, with particular, it is, as I indicated previously, the case law is clear in these matters that with a pre-existing non-conforming use, businesses can grow and move, and nothing stays stagnant, and things change. In particular, even pre-existing non-conforming uses can have more business. This case law, I can, wasn't the Board of Selectmen of Blackstone versus Telestone is the primary case on that. But to get in, I'm not going to get into legal avenues of it. I know you're familiar with what's going on here. So previously, when there was a violation, as I indicated previously, the prior tenant had, and this board found, had substantial problems with its use of the property. What we're proposing here is to codify that and reduce the number of vehicles parked at the property under the present business model. Now, previously, and again, this goes to detriment and not more detrimental use. Previously, the history of the auto body industry has been, and up until fairly recently, there's a lot of grinding going on, a lot of noise, a lot of chemicals, a lot of very disturbing things that happen within that business. This particular application has more into the just replacing parts. Most vehicles now really don't have a lot of metal in them unless you're looking at the drivetrain and the motor and things like that. Most of the components are composite, plastic, I don't know what you want to call them. I don't know exactly what they're made out of, but they're not made out of metal. And you can see that if you ever have a fender bender anymore, I mean, the whole part has to be replaced. And part of that business model is that if there's a vehicle accident, car is taken to the auto body shop, it's reviewed, and then a part is ordered, and the vehicle has to sit for 10 days, sometimes 3 or 4 days, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks, in order to get the particular part in. And that's just the particular business model, and it's different from the prior model. And I'll show some of the photographs before, but you saw these 2 years ago where, it was numerous vehicles on the lot. Now, the need here is to be able to store some vehicles outside. Now, previously in 2002, there was also concerns about the environmental impact of the work going on inside there. Since then, my client has expended an extraordinarily large amount of money to install a new exhaust system and a new chimney in accordance with the DEP, and that's all taken place. And again, goes towards the being not more detrimental. Under the proposed use, I'm not going to bring up a photograph right now because you're going to see them in a little bit, but if you look at the present plan, I want to point out that some of the complaints in the letters were that the vehicles were in the right-of-way. If you look at the proposed plan here, on the right-hand side, there's a right-of-way. You'll see that the proposed fencing, there are no vehicles in the right-of-way. So any issues with respect to the right-of-way would become moot if this board approved this particular plan. What we've done here is we have the back parking lot, as if I'll refer to it as that, has traditionally been an area where it has been packed with vehicles. My client has recently, or not so recently, but has put down bluestone, no pavement. There were some letters indicating that there's been pavement and things like that. There was some bluestone down in the back parking lot. Again, previously there had been complaints about dust and with vehicles back there and the dirt road and all that. That, again, makes it more appealing to have the vehicles parked there. We're proposing on the back rear sideline to plant 6 large trees behind in front of the fence to provide the neighbor in the rear who's way back. There's a forest behind there already, but in addition to that, to plant those trees to provide a buffer. If you look on the left-hand side of the property, this property, in fact, has two buildings. One is the auto body pre-existing business. The other is a residential home presently that Rick Sunderland lives in. Now, one of the things we've also proposed in this application is to have a, fence, I'm losing my mind, stockade fence, run from the back of the property line up into just about where the building is. That will provide a barrier and from the vehicles from the neighbor to the left, who I know is here in opposition and represented by counsel. The intent for that purpose is to shield any of the vehicles from that party. Now, as far as the residential property is concerned, if this is approved, and my client it's his home, he can put in the backyard what he would like to. That being said, he would certainly agree to reasonable restrictions to clean up that entire area and the entire backyard. Some of the neighbors have complained about that, and my client would be willing to agree to have that entire backyard cleaned up and policed and maintain it. If they want a lawn back there or something like that, he'd be amenable to that. Again, to appease the neighbors on the left-hand side, because some of their complaints have been about the noise and other things and smell. But, I mean, we're not complaining, they have the right to do it, but that neighbor actually has a goat farm there, and, you know, and those, are right on the other side of the fence, and, you know, they're there legally, but those smells come into our yard, just like sometimes noise goes into another yard, but that happens when you have a goat farm or a pre-existing business. The other issues here have been with respect to the storage of what was referred to as just, you know, junk. We have, there's a caged, right behind the building, there's proposed to be a caged area where there will be the storage of these composite parts. There's also a dumpster on the plan where anything that can't be salvaged. The business model is that when a vehicle comes in and there's I'm just going to refer to a front end bumper. You can talk to anything, a hood or whatever it might be, is damaged. It's removed, and then it's going to be placed in that caged-in area neatly, and then approximately once every week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how busy it is, the company comes in and picks those up because they're all recycled, and those are components that are, you know, the composites that you don't want to be necessarily putting into landfills, so the client recycles all of those particular units. With respect to another issue has been the hours of operation. Traditionally, this business has, in speaking with the prior unit, had been used on Sundays, had been used weekends, and then every day in the week and during the night. There was also, he had a hobby of hot rods and whatnot, and traditionally he would allow his friends and other people to come in and use the body shop at night. There's no indication to do that whatsoever. What we're proposing is that the hours of operation be for the public or any opening of the garage doors or any moving of vehicles outside of the property would be from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. and on Saturday from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. Now, at nighttime, they do occasionally stay past 6 p.m. and do quiet work inside. However, again, that would strictly be prohibited from any clients coming in or any opening of garage doors, any moving of vehicles outside of the property, you know, but for employee, you know, someone who comes and leaves on their own, just gets in the car and drives away. But there'll be no rearranging vehicles past the 6 p.m. Deadline in the back of the area. There'll be no opening or removing vehicles from the facility past that time, and there'll be no clients coming in and out of the property. If the client wants to be in there and, you know, just, you know, making sure a vehicle is dry or checking things like that at night, but that's quiet work, which would have no interference on that particular issue. I'm just looking at my notes here. The history here, Anna, can you pull up some of the photographs now? I apologize. I tried forwarding. I have an Apple system, and I tried forwarding photographs for about 2 hours today in color, and they just don't mesh with what I was trying to accomplish here. So I have some of them in black and white, but you've seen them before. This is an older photograph, but it's upside down. There we go. Now, this obviously from the age of some of these vehicles, but this shows, again, the history of the back portion of the parking lot having been used to store numerous vehicles throughout the years, and this has continued throughout the process. You can go to the next one, Anna, please. Again, and this is one that you've seen already. Again, I couldn't get the color to go through, but actually in some ways it's almost clearer in black and white, showing numerous vehicles throughout the property. And you have to remember that my clients never thought they were going to be here. So the historical photographic evidence is there just happened to be at one point in time there was a photograph taken of a particular property on one particular day. And, or some of the aerial photographs that happened, one day in April. So the evidence as to what went on in this arena, my client can get up and testify and talk about the fact that historically there have been numerous vehicles, well in excess of 30 vehicles over the past 20 years on the property on a regular basis. And what we're trying to do is to maintain that. You can go to the next one, Anna, thank you. This is just a simple one saying that if you look here, historically, the prior, not Damien, the last one, but the prior owner had historically repaired and fixed vehicles outside the property. This happens just to be a picture of him doing that. There was a lot of work that was done outside of the bays. That will not happen under the new situation. There's no mechanical work that will happen. It's only auto body repair. So with respect to work happening outside of the yard, would be more than happy to have a restriction that no work, body work take place outside the bays with the doors, for purposes of clients complaining of work happening outside. Again, if approved, would be not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood as proposed. Anything else, Anna? Actually, this photograph was just to show the existence. I was a misunderstanding. I had some conversations with some people about the new. Someone had indicated that there was some new material that was put down in the yard. I was mistaken as to the location, so I just added that. So you can just continue on with that. Next, that's the last photo of that. And then, could you have the aerial? Did I send you the aerials? That's fine. I know they're part of the opposition, and I'll get up again and discuss that. But the bottom line here is the plan as proposed and the continued operation of this business. I mean, this board already found that it is pre-existing non-conforming. The question comes down to what would the extent of that be. And I also provided, I'm not going to get into it, a report that was detailing where a business of this sort, and it's with your records, by an expert in the automotive repair industry, indicates that a business of this sort normally would have storage on site of upward between 50 or so vehicles. We're not asking for that. He's willing to work within the parameters of far less vehicle storage on the property of 35 vehicles. And I'm willing to answer any questions or see how you want to handle it.
Thank you, Attorney Lawler. I have some questions. Anyone else have questions first? No. So to clarify, what was noticed was that you're looking to codify the existing, no expansion, correct?
Well, I mean, is it an expansion or is it not? I mean,
What are you applying for?
There's really there was no other avenue. I guess technically it is an expansion, but in reality, it's not. I mean, my clients have operated this business in this fashion for a long time. I think the only way to apply for it was as an expansion. There's no remedy under the bylaw to apply for you to put your stamp on what you found to exist at that particular lot at any given time. So I guess it would be, I guess technically it would be an expansion.
But you didn't apply for an expansion. You applied for us to codify what is there as pre-existing.
Well, under the statute, I put that in my narrative, but because I was uncomfortable with the fact that it actually is an expansion. But if you look at the bylaw under the provision, it is under paragraph 24094, that does talk about expansion of a non-conforming use under the bylaw. And I think I was just, by the language in the application, I was clarifying our position with respect to what happened. And when we were at the hearing in 2022, the conversation was, come back here. And so you found that, it's actually a great question, Mr. Dewey. You found that there was pre-existing and that this present use of the prior tenant was an expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a new tenant who's brought everything back to what's being used there today and is willing to be held by what we're proposing. Now, is that an expansion? I guess you could argue it is. Some of the people here will say that it is an expansion. I think that certainly what we're trying to do, to the extent that it is an expansion in any degree, which under the bylaw I'm asking for, is that whatever this is, if it's deemed to, and I'll acknowledge it is an expansion, would not be more detrimental to the previous pre-existing non-conforming use certainly because of the mitigation we're offering with the fencing and the trees, moving in from the right-of-way, the removal of, right now, previously there were multiple layers of vehicles stored on 6A. Now we're, bringing them down to one lane on the whole front of the property and attempting to buffer as best as possible the neighbors to the left and to the rear. The neighbor to the right has no problem with this. They were here. They actually spoke in favor at the last hearing. I don't know if they're showing up tonight, but so my answer is very convoluted, but yes, I guess it is an expansion.
So I guess we need to determine what are we saying the pre-existing non-conforming use is?
I think that's what your job. I think that's exactly.
Well, what are you presenting it as?
I'm presenting it as what I just did, that there's been over 30 cars there, that the hours of operation.
What are you calling it? What are you calling it? You've said, it says in the notice, it says auto repair.
Yeah, it's an auto body repair shop.
But then you talked about now you're talking about body shop.
Well, that is auto repair, body shop. That's all it's ever been.
Well, we only have one definition in our zoning code for anything auto repair, I believe.
Well, we're willing to have you put a restriction that that there's no engine work, no transmission work, no changing of oils, no changing of fluids, strictly and that I think benefits the town and quite frankly benefits and it complies with the bylaw as being not more substantially detrimental. We're not intending to do any type of engine work, I said before, no oil changes, no fluid changes. This is to replace the shell of, or car's been in an accident or scraped up, replaced, and painted. Oh, that's one of the other things that my client also, with the addition of this new venting system, is prepared and willing to substantially switch over. You can't do it 100%, but go to about 75% to water-based paints, which are far more environmentally friendly, and right now is not the norm in the industry. He's actually starting to set up to get it going under the, and that was at the request of the environmental people in the Commonwealth. So again, and then we'd be willing to put that into the decision. This is a very unique application because of the situation we're in. I technically, if I really wanted to push the limits, say, okay, we have a new client here. We have reduced the use, and if we hit with a violation, and then come back again and say, well, no, now we do conform. But that process, it would just be a complete and utter waste of resources and time, and I think would create further hostility within the community and whatnot. And it was determined, after speaking with multiple people in the town, that this was the best course of action to file it in this particular manner. But it is it is strange. I mean, I purposely put that language in there, that it's, non-conforming use, codify, expand, and I do have the word expansion in there with my terrible handwriting. So,
It's just not how it was noticed, but that's fine. I just want to determine here, the pre-existing, so you're saying the pre-existing is a auto repair shop?
Correct.
Or as our
Yes.
bylaw says, auto service and repair shops?
Yeah.
And the proposed is an auto body shop only?
it has been an auto body shop for over 60 years, but there was other work that would take place on the property with auto repair that we are prepared not to do.
And how many parking cars need to be parked for the pre-existing non-conforming use?
35.
And how many are needed for now?
I'm sorry, previously there was well over 50. We're looking for 35.
Okay. And then just a question, so do you know what the right-of-way restrictions are on use of that? That's just for access, or?
I believe that's access to the rear property, but I think we've moved everything in from the right-of-way. Right now, if you go there, the property spills into the right-of-way. So, I mean, we want to fix that again, and which makes it less detrimental.
Okay. And then is there a drainage plan? Is there drainage proposed and a tight tank, or?
No, it's not before. This is just a use issue. There's a,
Well, if we're going for more expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming, we have,
there's no drainage. The only thing that's changed is my client did put bluestone in the back parking lot. It was just dirt. He put in a square, basically that back parking area as it's shown there with the spaces is now bluestone.
okay, so the expansion of the parking lot didn't trigger any needs for upgrades?
No.
Okay. How are vehicles getting here? They're tow trucks?
Vehicles have always the way. They've gotten here mainly by tow trucks, but a lot of them are driven in.
Okay.
Like a simple fender bender, you see them. I mean, if a substantial, actually, I'll take that back. I think the majority are driven in, and then there are many that are delivered by tow truck.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have a quick question that,
Sorry.
when you say previously there were 50 cars parked there, what previous,
I'm listening to, I mean, there was certainly when
I don't think it was even
the violation
10
was.
years
but
ago,
no.
was it?
But there was certainly in the 90s and the early 2000s, our position is that there would be sometimes as little as 15 cars there and sometimes over 30 or.
I mean, I remember, I've been driving by there for years, and it actually looks like it's gotten cleaned up a little bit, but the volume of activity has just gotten out of control. But previously, there were not a whole lot of cars actually parked there. So 50, I find kind of hard to believe. But sorry if I interrupted you there, Manny.
No, that's fine. Microphone.
So this is in the West Barnstable Village Business District, right?
Yes.
There's a specific ordinance that applies to this district, and I was wondering if you could speak to that. This is 240-20B4.
I don't have that off the top of my head. What's the?
All right, it's just, it requires us to make certain findings that we can't unless there's testimony to that effect. So I'll read you what it says. Special permit performance standards. In addition to the standards for the grant of special permits set forth in 125C, the grant of any special permit within the West Barnstable Village Business District requires findings to support that the development meets the following criteria, and then it lists items A through I. So each one of those are findings that this board needs to make in order to approve this. And
But for expansion of a non-conforming,
for issuing a special
Okay.
permit, right, within the WBVBD. I guess I'm curious as to how do we make those findings if there's no testimony to that effect?
I may ask for short recess and I can provide testimony to that shortly, or I may ask for a continuance of this matter as well.
Okay, Mark, did you have any comments?
Just that,
I know, sorry.
continue your thought.
No, you please go, please.
So I'm also would, if it does get continued or even tonight, just a little more explanation about if this is a body shop. I've never seen one, and this is just, I'm not saying they don't exist, but car gets in an accident, radiators broken, pans get, oil pans get broken, things like that. Are they drained before they come to the site? Are they not replacing fluids? Are they not doing any radiator replacements, anything? There's no mechanical work at all. I've never seen a situation like this where there is not fluids and there is not mechanical work done in a body shop. And it just, some further explanation would just be helpful.
My client will testify as to that. This is the actual tenant, the actual operator, Alex.
So my name is Alessandro George. So I'm the new tenant. Moved about a year ago. So when a car gets in an accident, usually the fluids drop whatever the accident happened, usually in the road. When it comes to us, we remove the old parts and install the new ones. We add a new fluid. Most of the new cars have to go to dealership, go on a tow truck to the dealership. So very minimal cars, we add the fluids in our shop. So when
I misspoke, I'm sorry.
yeah, so he mentioned about the water-based paint. We've been using water-based paint for over 10 months. We did a lot of improvement. So recycled solvent, and we don't use, most of the cars are replacement parts, we got to keep the parts for the insurance company. Usually come in a picture for get paid us. So some cars been sitting away for over 2 months. It's really hard to get parts right now. And that's why we got a lot of volume of cars on a lot. But during the summertime, we have a lot of movement cars because people get lost, they stop by, get information, and people be on the phone on our parking lot. Don't bother me, but it's got a lot of.
Okay, I just want to be with the fluids, because in speaking earlier, I was under the understanding that there's no oil changes.
No, we don't do any oil
You don't do any
changes,
no engine work?
No engine work. For the new cars, we have to send to the dealership. We just
So you're not-
pretty much is the body.
So I just want to be clear, because I was under the understanding there was no fluid. So when you say fluids, what are you talking about fluids?
It's oil,
But you don't put oil in?
and freeze. If you have to add, but we don't do oil change oil fluid.
Okay, so you might, okay. I apologize, I was
Yeah.
mistaken,
I was just curious
No, it's
because,
a good question,
again,
'cause I don't want to make any
Odyssey.
misrepresentation.
And outside of Manny's question, my only other, just looking at the site, I'm assuming that the 35 cars, or what we believe is anecdotal at this point. When I'm looking here and I see the stockade fence, and let's assume all 35 spots were taken, how do the cars move? I don't even see how they would be able to turn around.
Moving once at a time. So when a car came in an accident, we write an estimate, order parts. Obviously, it takes some time to get the parts. We put in the back. It easily works. In the car drivable, we put in the front end, and just.
But if car, I'm just asking, like, if car 35 is going to be worked on, do you move all 16 cars here to get one car out? Is there a gate somewhere here? You're penned in pretty tight, so that's why I'm wondering. It seems like a lot for the lot.
Well,
Just wondering.
It's look at the picture. It look like it's a lot, but it's very very easy. On that picture over there, so when you park the cars, we have a big space on the center of the parking lot. So we have the cars pre-organized when you park the car in the back. So cars ready to deliver stay in the front of the shop, and.
You couldn't even get it.
Could I just find something that would make sense out of all this?
I mean, come talk to me real quick.
Yeah.
The engineer creates these spaces by size, so they don't pack like that.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
You might have to move one to get.
I mean, to answer your question, I think that the spaces are much larger than the vehicles themselves, but if, for instance, the worst-case scenario, case 35, worst-case scenario, you'd have to move 4 cars.
And I only ask because when we do any other type of parking plan, there's usually a requirement for ability to turn, ability to.
But this is not intended as parking for pedestrian, this back parking lot is not intended in any way for parking for use of the building. The parking for the clients are the 4 spaces up front. This is strictly for the storage of vehicles. So that's why, you're right, there's no way that under, this was drafted up by Sullivan Engineering, Mr. O'Day, this is for storage of vehicles to be utilized, to be repaired. This is not to be taken in and out on a daily basis. So, for instance, again, car 35, thinking that the parts might take 2 or 3 weeks for that one particular one, they might put it way back there, have it sit there. Vehicles that are going to be repaired on a much quicker basis would be parked up front. And yes, there would be certain occasions where they would have to, get out and move a bunch of cars around and shuffle things around. But that's just part of the business. And if they're intended to be packed tight, there's no, this is not a parking lot set up where parking spaces have to be a minimum of 18 feet, sometimes 20 feet, depending on the zoning district, with certain spaces between cars so that you have, enough room to back up. This is not, no public will be allowed to drive back there.
So is that stockade fence staying in the right of way? Is that how do they get out?
We don't own that. That's owned by the people to the right of us. They put it in. We could certainly speak with them and have it moved because we're on a very good friendly basis with that, and I don't think there would be any problem if we move that.
But how are the cars getting in and out?
How are they getting in and out?
What you're showing us is a closed lot. Is there a gate
Well, they're allowed to
somewhere?
come in. There will be a gate put in there.
Where?
Where?
The traversing over the right-of-way, right to the right of the back of the building, where space. My eyes aren't good like they used to be. I can't tell you what space that number that is.
There's enough space.
Yeah. Right. If I had a pointer, I just can't read the number space. Right to the right is space 13.
Okay.
That's a very good point. It's not pointed out on the plan.
It looks like you would have to drive through 13 to get
And 12.
and
Probably
12 to get
11.
in there. The lot just seems tight. I know you can accommodate, and I know there's cars there, but I mean, this seems unusually tight, an unusually tight number of cars. I could be wrong, but the way it's proposed here gives pause as to, can 35 cars really be accommodated in this section?
Yeah, I mean, also you're calling for you need 12 employee and customer parking. So and you're showing 29 spaces is how the plan is read. So 29 minus 12, you're getting down there. You're not anywhere close to 35.
Well, there's 35 parking spaces showed on the plan.
But look at your parking summary.
I understand. I mean, we're trying to work within the parameters of the pre-existing. This particular lot has had cars jammed in it for years.
Can you show us more evidence of that? Because
can.
I look through
Actually, I'll show you pictures of
GIS at every year going back, and there's never.
Well, it's difficult to come up with photographs of something that you didn't need to know you were going to photograph 25 years ago.
But our town takes aerial photos every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, but there are some aerials that were. I thought I sent aerials as well. Maybe they didn't go through on it. Okay, I know that there's some aerials in the opposition. I'll even look at those. Do you have those?
Well, there's that from Google Earth, but then you go to town. I mean, 2015. That's 2020. I mean, there's no sign of that ever being used back there to me. Yeah. But I don't know, but that's probably when Brian violated it, right? Remember, were you on the board then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this seems like what was consistently used, but I
What
don't
year
just
is
look
that
at-
one?
That's 2020. That's 2015. That's 2009. That's 2001. And then 96 we go, it's hard to see, but there's nothing back there. There's 2014. 2009, 2008, there was a boat there, but no cars. 2001, there was nothing. A little bit going on.
And it's just not realistic.
That's 89. Nothing back there in 68. Every time.
The pictures tell.
Mr. Dewey, a series of those photographs were sent today, but it's, again, they were sent from for some reason, they weren't compatible with the town, because I sent them, and Anna was, she put me on notice. I thought they were resent, but the aerial photographs, they do exist, and
Okay. And they contradict that GIS maps going all the way back?
no, I mean, there's some that were taken in April. There's some in the early 2000s that have 15 cars on them, some with about 14 or 18. There's none with 50. I'm just going by but those are also taken, in April. If you look at the aerials, they appear that they're during hours when the businesses are not in operation, because the package store, in those aerial photographs, the parking lot has maybe one vehicle in it, or two, or sometimes none. So I'm not sure how representative they are. To go back again and have my clients, and again, I am going to be asking for continuance on this, he's scrambling trying to find evidence to support his testimony of what happened. But there's just not a lot of photographs. People don't take photographs of the parking lots. And that's the problem.
Does anyone have any other questions? I think we should probably open the public. The
know
building
that-
commissioner is here. If we have any questions, the building commissioner as well.
I have one question. Are we all in receipt, it's on, are we all in receipt of a letter of February 12th from, let's see, regarding,
The Civic Association?
nope, this is from Lisa Hendrickson? Yeah, that's Civic. I'm just curious how you would address her comments in there.
I don't have the letter memorized. Can you say which specific comment?
There's 8, which have, it's having to do with the septic, soil contamination, groundwater. There's quite a few questions here that I think should be addressed.
I mean, this is again, a pre-existing non-conforming use that I think really, I mean, obviously this board, if they're going to grant anything, its purview, can get into what. This is a business that's been operating here since, I think, the 50s or 40s or 50s in its present condition. There's no indication that there's any soil contamination. Some of the neighbors have contacted Board of Health on a regular basis. They've come down, inspected. I know that they've contacted the state and whatnot, and the business continues to run, and no one's attempted to shut them down based on any of these particular areas. They have the present septic system has been there for I don't know how long, but there's no indication that there's any difficulties. There's no indication that there's been any failures. the use, if this is denied, my client still has the right to continue to operate a pre-existing non-conforming use. The question then comes down to is, then do we get another violation saying that, okay, now 35 cars are too many, and then we come back and go back and go through the process again? It's a unique situation because the use itself has been, agreed that it is non-conforming and it has not stopped. So the question comes down to, under this particular area, what makes sense for my client to try to cooperate with the town and to try to work with the town to have something here that is definable and enforceable. And this is the avenue that we took, because again, if it gets denied, it doesn't prevent him from operating a pre-existing auto business. The question is, how big can it be? And that question's not answered. It can't be 50, because that was what's happening 2 years ago. It cannot be. And all these things that we're trying to do is to say, okay, here, this is what we're offering. We want to, be able to. That's why I put the report there by having 35 vehicles, because there's a certain limit where, a business just can't function. But we're willing to make all these other concessions, clean up the real estate on the residential property, put in the fencing, put in the trees, move the property off of the right-of-way, and, cage all the parts, agree to restrict hours. All these things that we're coming here to try to do is what we're, attempting to do. And I agree with you, Mr. Alves, that I should have had those, A through I done, and I apologize for that.
So you are asking for an expansion of a pre-existing, or you are not?
I have to.
Okay, so
yeah.
you are?
Yeah.
So it's been sort of unclear here.
Well, no, I think I said that in the beginning. I was purposely vague because it's I said that. I said that I put the statute down and I wrote in there.
But you
non-conforming
also have been
codification.
asking us for just to codify what is.
But I have the word
pre-existing.
expansion there too, so,
Again, that's just not how it was noticed.
So, one,
on the application, that's how it was.
if I may, one question. The site plan is what you're proposing to do.
Correct.
It doesn't reflect the conditions as they exist today.
That is correct. It is so much, the site plan is so much better than what's there right now.
So, okay, because a lot of what we've seen from others, and people speak to it, is the current conditions as they exist.
Yeah.
And how long has your client been operating the premises?
My client has owned it since what, 15 years? How long you been?
07.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So, almost 20 years. And before that, it had been the prior owner, I believe it was in his family. I think his father-in-law owned it, I think sometime in the 50s.
So what's confusing is the pictures that we've seen reflecting the current conditions show a lot more cars and
Well, yeah.
boats and.
A lot of those pictures you see are from 3 or 4 years ago, too, and it's not quite what it is now.
So you're proposing to do.
I was there the other day, and there were something like 37 cars on the lot.
Again, just so I'm clear, the site plan is what the end condition is intended to be.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a lot of members of the public here, so I think.
I'll sit down.
It sounds like we're going to probably continue this, but I think we should have public comments. People made an effort, and they've had to wait for everything else we've been doing tonight. So I think we should open for public comment unless anyone else has any other questions. And then we'll see where we go from there. We did receive 3, I believe, letters.
Brian has a.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Florence, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Appreciate your time here today and your volunteer work that you do for the town of Barnstable. Couple things, I heard some questions earlier relative to, first one was drainage. This went to site plan review. Our engineering department looked at that. And because they're not adding pervious surface, there's no requirement to add drainage to the site. As you've heard from Mr. Lawler, this is a pre-existing non-conforming use. This process began with an enforcement action from us, and you folks upheld that. And our issue at the time was the hours of operation, the days of operation, and then and possibly the volume of the operation. You upheld my decision that it was an expansion at the time, and we agreed that the use was expanded. Since then, the previous operators who contributed to antagonizing the neighborhood, if you will, have moved and left. And as you've heard on a couple of instances, the place has cleaned up a little bit, and it's doing a lot better than it was. I've heard a lot less complaints. Not saying that there aren't still complaints, I just have heard a lot less. So today's hearing, in my opinion, closes the loop on the enforcement action that we took in 2021. We were trying to get established then what the hours of operations were, what the days of operations were, and the volume of operation. So in order to clarify what I determined was an expansion and to provide some certainty to the neighborhood, I'm hoping today, or at least when this appeal is done, or this request for a special permit is done, that you codify through the special permit that the hours of operation are X, the days of operation are X, the parking numbers are X, and that way there, if the neighborhood has an issue, they can come to us and we can say, here's what you're violative of. You're violating a special permit that was granted to you. Right now, we have it's almost the Wild West because we can't determine what is violative of the pre-existing nonconformity or not. We've got different stories and examples from previous owners, from myself, from previous officials here in town of what was and what did not exist. Attorney Lawler was right in the sense that, you take a flyover on April 24th, it's not going to show you the same conditions that are there on July 24th. The volume of vehicles come and go, the volume and the condition of the parking lots and the business come and go. So I'm not advocating for or against the business. I'm advocating for some certainty for us in the enforcement area and some certainty for the neighborhood when it's done. That's all I'm here for. But thank you for previously holding up my notice of violation that there was an expansion of the use. We agree that there was an expansion of the use. That's what we're trying to lock down. To what degree is that expansion allowed? Happy to answer any questions.
So in your historical records, did you have a use that was put on that place? Because the expansion before, I believe, from memory, was they also were doing auto sales was part of that expansion.
Yes,
that
Mr. Chairman,
we
you're
determined never
exactly
had
right.
existed.
We have in our records that it was auto body and sales.
In sales, okay.
Yep. And auto body, as you've heard, it does require disassembling a vehicle. That's not mechanical work. Mechanical work is disassembling an engine, tearing out, fluids and that type of thing. Yes, sir.
Will you have any suggestions for establishing a number of cars allowed on the site or anything like that?
I'm going to leave that to you folks.
I think the hours of operation are pretty easy to establish. But
Yeah, I will say that I can go back from 1935 in our flyovers to current, and the volume does ebb and flow. I don't know what you think is appropriate, but I certainly can say that I've witnessed that there have been at least 50 vehicles on that parcel at some points. It's been less since the previous operators have left, and I will say that from an enforcement perspective, the current operators that are there are cooperative and helpful to us. I don't know what their relationship is with the neighborhood, but to us, they're very helpful, and they do what we ask them to do. So, including being here today. I've pushed really hard to get them here, to try to get the neighbors some consistency in the operations over at that site. It's taken a long time, but I appreciate the fact that they're here and that they're cooperating with the enforcement aspect of things.
well, thanks for putting some,
Helpful.
That was non-conforming when zoning was enacted, correct? That's when that was established?
It was conforming when it was enacted. When they started doing auto body at that shop, it was conforming at the time. That's why it's pre-existing but non-conforming now, because the rules have changed that won't allow that type of use there. And remember, Alves, the section that you're talking about, 240-20, what that section talks about, if you go before it, what it says is if you're going to operate these special permit allowed uses, one is artisan, another one's windmills, and I forget what the third one is. But if you're going to operate those special permit uses, you have to comply with A through I. That's not for pre-existing non-conforming use. So the special permit, you're 100% right. If you're going to operate one of those three special permit allowed uses, you have to comply with A through I. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thing here is then, I guess we could go back in zoning history and determine what the zoning was allowing when it was by right, and that would align with what the pre-existing non-conforming without
think you-
expansion.
Mr. Chairman, I think if you go back, what you'll find is it wasn't regulated. You'll find that it predates even the residential use districts that we have now.
Okay.
One of the attorneys may be able to, opine on that a little bit, but that's my understanding.
Just to pick up on that last point, the language of the provision I was looking at says the grant that any special permit within the area requires these findings. You're saying it's specific to particular uses?
I'm saying if you read it in context, you have to go to the sections in front of it. That's what I understood it to be. I didn't study it, I just looked at it while I was sitting back there, but
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. Attorney,
I didn't think it was applicable, but you told me it was. That's why I asked for.
well, I'd be curious to hear your perspective on why it's not.
I don't have it, I don't
No,
have
no,
it.
no, we're gonna continue this, because I guess, I hear what you're saying, but that is not
Okay.
how I read, maybe I'm wrong.
Mr. Chairman, can I just, Mr. Chairman, are you finished with me, folks?
Yes, anyone else, any other questions for the building commissioner? No? Okay.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you for being
I
here.
I know it's public comment, I just wanted to clarify one of the things that you asked about, but about whether or not it is a pre-existing condition. This board has already ruled and ordered that it is. I'm just going to read this to you. In Appeal 2022-048, an appeal of the Building Commissioner's notice of zoning in order and cease and desist August 25, 2022, which stated the pre-existing non-conforming auto body shop has, the pre-existing non-conforming auto body shop has, so you've already acknowledged it's pre-existing non-conforming
use.
auto body shop. This
The
board
use,
has.
for sure,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just want to
Yeah.
clarify that.
I think it's just determining what the baseline is of what's expansion.
No, and I think
And
that's why we're here. yeah.
it's. All right, so we're open for public comment. If anyone would like to speak, just come up and name and address for the record, and you can speak.
Hello. I'm Anthony Lovell of 1247 Main Street, West Barnstable. I understand a lot of the challenge you face is determining what was permitted this property and when. And sometimes it has, in reaching back to determine that, you're looking for the worst photograph you can find that shows the most dump-like state of 50 or vehicles, which is probably not what we should be trying to do, which is to ratchet ourselves back to the most egregious use of the property. But I think forensically, the thing you should be looking for is how was the property being used in 2007 when the current tenant agreed upon terms of his tenancy, because he agreed by whatever amount he would pay to use the property that he would use it in such a fashion. And to increase it, if it was not well codified, it needs to be well codified. But to argue that it should be increased from that mode of use would be to say that he has a natural right to derive more value from the property other than the terms under which he entered into his tenancy. And that largesse is going to come not from the town, it's going to come at the expense of the property values of those who abut him. And no matter how careful people running a body shop might be, there's a level of risk of the fluids that any vehicle contains, of damaged vehicle contains. It's going to be proportional to the number of vehicles stored on the property and handled, no matter how carefully. And so looking at, as you have, the parking plan and asking reasonable questions, is this practical and feasible, or will it be one of these sliding tile games or the Frogger video game to actually make use of it? Those are good questions to ask. The people who are using the property are going to be sensible. Spot 35 is probably going to have the car that's going to have to wait longest for the parts, but these are good questions to ask all the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Thank you for your patience. My name is Patrick Nickerson. I'm an associate attorney with the Law Office of John W. Kenny. Our office is in Centerville. Attorney Kenny is present here tonight, along with our clients, Nancy Trafton, Samantha and Matthew Gray, Roberta Go, and Patrick Watson. They've been involved in some of the zoning enforcement that's dated back now to 2019, and have a number of comments related to the proposed expansion of the nonconforming use. I do have some visual aids. I'll try and bring those up as we go. Okay, great. So in the spring of 2019, our clients observed a substantial extension of the use occurring at the property. For over 60 years, the property went by the name of Hootenen's Auto Body. It was run by Walfrid Hootenen and then his stepson, Neil Atwood. In the prior enforcement action, you received an affidavit from Neil Atwood describing the general hours of operation. Those general hours of operation were 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday, generally closed on Sunday. The affidavit has been submitted with your materials and is attached here too as Exhibit B. This is in your materials and was presented in 2022 regarding the enforcement. So paragraphs 14 and 15 from Mr. Atwood detailed the general hours of operation from 1947 until 2019. There were some deviations, sure. Occasionally a full day would be worked on a Saturday instead of a half day. There might also be a day of work on Sunday once or twice a year, but the affidavit and the testimony set forth in the affidavit is generally 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, half day Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon. In the spring of 2019, this all changed, and it changed rather quickly with the occupancy of Cape Quality Collision. Shortly after they occupied the property, work began 7 days a week from early in the morning until late at night. There were significantly more employees other than the 3 that were historically on site, also detailed in the affidavit. A significant increase in vehicles, storage, traffic, deliveries, refuse, and overflow of the business onto adjacent properties. The area for the parking and storage of vehicles had expanded without consideration for the setbacks or landscaping, and it would also affect the flow of traffic onto Route 6A. Worse yet, work was occurring outdoors without environmental safeguards, and the amount of pavement was increased, and that was expanded without site plan approval. Our clients witnessed this for years. After investigation, a thoughtful investigation by the building commissioner, there was a conclusion that the pre-existing non-conforming auto body use had expanded without a special permit in violation of 240-94B. The cease and desist letter was issued August 25th, 2022. That's also in your materials and is attached here too as Exhibit A. The findings are set forth in the bottom half of Exhibit A regarding the observations of the building commissioner. And to remedy these violations, there was a number of items to do, a to-do list, if you will. Reduce the number of vehicles to pre-expansion levels. Remove vehicles, parts, associated materials, trash, debris from the sides of the building, behind the building, within the fenced-in area. Remove the auto body and automotive tools and equipment from behind the building and in the fenced area. Remove the asphalt that was installed to increase the parking lot. Reduce the number of vehicles parked on the exterior of the building to no more than 6 located within the parking area at the front of the building. Cease and desist all outdoor vehicle operations, including repair and cleaning. Cease and desist all work during non-business hours between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Reduce the number of employees to previous levels, no more than 3. All parking, vehicles for repair, vehicles stored for all other, to be located on-site, no off-site parking, including the car dealership. Cease and desist all operations for the commercial operations of the car dealership. Return the hours to pre-expansion levels, which were indicated to be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Friday through Saturday, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. Saturday, to be closed Sunday. And then a plan was given that upon cessation of these violations, make an application and attend site plan review to request an expansion if it was the intent to expand the business. As we know, this notice was appealed to this board on October 26, 2022, after consideration of testimony, photographs, signed petition with 50-plus signatures, the affidavit from Neil Atwood, testimony. This board voted to uphold the cease and desist notice and confirm the finding that the business had expanded without a special permit. What happened next was really nothing. From October 2022 to February 2024, there was no meaningful progress made on this to-do list regarding the property. Vehicles remained above pre-expansion levels. All the things that should have been done were largely not done. Our clients can say that in January 2023, there was a boundary line survey, but there was no measurable progress with the laundry list that the building commissioner ordered to be done in 2022 was upheld before this board, and then February 2024 arrives, there's been no progress. The change was that a new tenant arrived on site, Pexioto Auto Center. And in preparation of this new tenant, a number of trash and debris were piled to the rear of the business and set on fire. This photo was submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals in 2022 as evidence of the work that had been occurring outdoors, noting the spills of fluids on the concrete apron in front of the shop. In anticipation of Pexioto's arrival, the apron was removed without site plan review approval. It was dumped in the rear of the property along with the chimney. You can see chimney rubble as well as apron rubble. And a bury hole was dug by the applicant next to the septic tank cover. And the debris was pushed into the bury field, and our clients watched him cover it with dirt, spread it around. This, of course, comes after the October 2022 hearing, where the board heard evidence of our client's concern about groundwater contamination and the environmental concerns related to outdoor auto body work and automotive work. And after the applicant knew our clients were concerned of their own private wells being contaminated by the applicant's activities. In February 2022, the building commissioner advised this office that it would hold any further enforcement actions against Pexioto to offer it essentially the opportunity to conduct its affairs in a lawful manner. Our clients were hopeful that conditions would improve with Pexioto and their concerns would be alleviated by their operation. However, their observations over the past year lead them only to conclude that their concerns regarding groundwater contamination, hours of operation, and overburdening of the property continue. Just going through a variety of photos we have here. This is a gravel delivery in March of last year. This is the bluestone Attorney Lawler was likely referencing. This is showing the gravel was installed without site plan approval and is presently on the conditions set forth in the request for special permit on the site plan, but these portions of the conditions have already, the work has already been done. This photo shows the gravel installed and additional cars being parked over it. There's also a number of boats, trailers, vehicles, and equipment behind the residential structure. In April, there's an increase of vehicles to the rear of the business and property. This photograph shows another view of the rear of the property. This is August of last year. There's a number of items, boats, bobcat trailer, some type of blue locker, antique Jeep, green tent. It's difficult at this point to determine when the commercial portion of the property ends as far as auto body repair and the residential portion begins. It's a similar view demonstrating the number of car parts to the rear of the yard in December of this year. This photo demonstrates that deliveries are occurring on the property next door, 990 Main Street. Delivery vehicles, large truck vehicles have no place to park, given the number of cars out front. Doesn't look like the audio is going to work for us, but this is a video taken by our clients showing the interior of the garage bays just being blown out with an air compressed hose. Of course, all the debris will flow onto the concrete apron that was replaced in February of last year. There is no stormwater drainage accommodating the site, and there's no treatment or any catch basins to deal with the runoff. Okay, we can go next to the next set of photos. These are some additional photos from Samantha Gray. The top photo here where my cursor was taken September of 2024. The bottom left taken December 2024. Bottom right taken September 2024. Again, it just shows really an overburdening of the site, particularly in the top photo. The top photo on page 2 is most recent. This was taken just February 8th of this year. It shows the back of the lot jam-packed with vehicles, bobcat trailer, boats, a number of other equipment and items. 2 bottom photos were taken in September of 2024. Regarding the historical use of the site, these are some Google Street views taken from 2008 versus 2024, showing the rear yard in 2008 being mostly dirt with few autos. The bottom picture in 2024 shows, of course, an increase in pavement with many more cars. This is a sampling of historic aerials submitted by Samantha Gray. We're looking at 1968, 1989, and then 2008. This is just a sample. Samantha has told me, and would certainly tell this board, she has examined 13 different overhead maps between the GIS site, Barnstable Property Lookup, and Google Maps. Of the 13, she worked out to be an average of 16 vehicles on site, far fewer than the numbers you've heard earlier in tonight's hearing. Issues persist regarding deliveries and the number of cars on site. There's a busy intersection here on the State Highway and Route 6A. One photo, you're seeing a tow truck and a delivery simultaneously, and then you're seeing a number of cars parked within the road layout on 6A. This is a common issue for the Grays. where delivery vehicles will come and park in their driveway because there's no place to park on the property to either make deliveries for the residents or the commercial tenant. This photo from July shows the dumpster in the right-of-way, shows work being done outside, shows a boat where a parking space should be, according to the site plan, and a vehicle interrupting sight lines with 990 Main Street. Hours of operation have continued to be an issue this past year. The business is routinely open after 7 p.m. This photo is taken at 8:42 p.m. in February, shortly after opening. Delivery trucks will use this area between, well, we really think it's on 990 Main Street, but delivery trucks will have to park creatively to make deliveries work, given the site. Our clients continue to see work outside, vehicles being washed outdoors. These are photographs here with certain dates, stills from vehicles. And also the concern of groundwater contamination persists. Vehicles are being washed indoors. The water is washing outside the bays onto the new concrete apron. You can see the difference in the texture, I guess, if you will. And there's nothing there to store or treat the runoff. Recently, this was last month, in January, there was a perimeter spill extending almost entirely around the property. Vehicle traveled onto 990 Main Street before they were able to get it back inside the bay facing Route 6A. So, I mean, the sum and substance of these photos are really concerns for a number of employees. Our clients have seen 6 on the property at any given time. Work is occurring 7 days a week, past 7 p.m., sometimes after 10 p.m. The use extends beyond the property boundaries, as demonstrated by the photos. Vehicles are being dismantled outdoors. Vehicles are being washed outdoors. Turning us to site plan. We've taken the site plan and attached it next to the historical photo, which was used in the earlier presentation. If you're looking at the approximate distance just by the length of the vehicles shown in the photo and compare it to the site plan, I mean, we can work out that a number of these vehicles shown are not likely on the property at all. That these vehicles marked with red X's actually extend beyond the property boundaries, and therefore they should not be entitled to credit, if you will, for number of cars being located on site. The requirement is that the vehicles be parked on site. A number of cars, too, appear to be within the road layout. Regarding the site plan, there's just too many spaces on it. The site plan also doesn't reference all the boats, equipment, and vehicles beyond the stockade fence on the westerly side, if you will. There's no stormwater management or containment or treatment of hazardous materials contemplated by the plan. The amount of impervious coverage is not shown. Location of the septic system is not shown. Access to the rear is a concern, given how densely packed the vehicles are laid out in the rear. This concern was raised by the fire department at informal site plan review, but not addressed further in formal site plan review. There's no designated area for delivery vehicles to park. There's no designated area for the residents of the property to park. The landscape buffers could be improved. We've discussed the fence in the right-of-way already. And There are zoning considerations to take in mind also, that in order to expand a pre-existing non-conforming use, this board must find that the proposed expansion and/or intensification will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood, and that a number of requirements are met. We believe the site plan as proposed is more detrimental than the historical use of the site, and that the requirements 1 through 4 are not met. Chapter 240, 125C2 sets forth the standard for granting a special permit. First, the application must fall within the category specifically accepted for by this chapter. We agree that it does, and that an evaluation of all the evidence presented at the public hearing as it relates to the fulfillment of the spirit and intent of this chapter without substantial detriment to the public good or the neighborhood affected. We don't believe the board can make these findings based on the plan presented. And regarding 240-20B4, we believe this section does apply to the West Barnstable Village Business District. The language does say, in addition to the standards for the grant of a special permit set forth in 240-125C, the grant of any special permit within the West Barnstable Village Business District requires findings to support that the development meets the following criteria, and then sets forth a list of criteria A through I. Specifically, B speaks to mitigating impacts to safety and congestion from development. C speaks to protecting and preserving the water supply for both drinking water and fire protection. D requires that stormwater shall be contained on site and be mitigated using best management practices. And F requires that it does not generate noise, vibration, smoke, dust, or other particulate matter, odors, heat, glare that intrude a similar nuisance on abutting or nearby residential uses. It's our opinion that this subsection does apply specifically to the West Barnstable Village Business District, and that this board cannot make those findings with the plan as presented. So for those reasons, we're asking you to deny the request for special permit as presented for the reasons stated. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right, we'll continue with public comment. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this?
Well, I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi. I was hopeful after Commissioner Florence's testimony that things had improved there, but the neighbors don't agree that there's been improvement. It looks better, but
We would have to admit that the scope of work has been limited, and that a major issue with the previous tenants were the engine repairs, the mechanical uses that are separate from an auto body use. So there have been some improvements, but overall, the concerns regarding congestion, traffic, environmental hazards, et cetera, still remain.
I have a question. Go ahead, Manny.
Yeah. Similar question that I asked Attorney Lawler. The photos that you showed, would you say they show a condition that is actually worse than what is being proposed by the site plan? It goes back to, sorry to interrupt you, to the Inspector Florence's question about finding out, having this board determine what is the permitted use, so that his office can then monitor and see if there's any sort of violation. I'm asking, is the site plan as proposed an improvement on current conditions?
Sure.
I'd like to take that question. Just for the record, Attorney John Kenny. Pat and I have been handling this for our clients. I understand your question, but I think the focus is wrong. The applicants are coming before you for a special permit and is saying, the guy before us was a lot worse. And he had 50 cars there, and he was doing all kinds of other work besides body work. And look how good we are. We're not asking for 50, we're down to 35. What your focus should be is look at the affidavit from the prior owner. That's what establishes what the legal pre-existing non-conforming use was, not the expansion that took place in 2019 and then a reduction a little bit in 2024. So, look at that. Our client, on one of the slides you can see, went through and looked at 15 years of aerial photos. And the average of number of vehicles on the site during those photos was roughly 15 or 16. They're asking for 35. Mr. Hanson, you're exactly right when you question the work area. Those spots are 8 by 17. They're crammed in there. And yes, the industry has changed, and you also have electric vehicles with batteries that can catch on fire. If car number 35 is an electric vehicle in there, God forbid, I don't know how the fire department's going to go get in there and prevent it from spreading. So, yeah, there's been some improvements since Pex Auto took over, but this is a significant expansion of what the legal pre-existing non-conforming use was. It's not what it was in 2019, and so we're reducing it down to 2020 in 2024, so we should get credit for that. So that's an improvement. Those were violations. They were cited by the building commissioner, and you upheld those violations, and you gave them an order to bring the property back into compliance with that order of conditions, and it wasn't done. And Pex Auto may be a better operator than the prior one, but the one constant here is the applicant, the owner, Mr. Sunderland. He doesn't care. You saw what he did with the apron. He dug a hole, and I was watching him as he saw the photos, and he was laughing, and he turned, he looked up at my client. He was, laughing about, that's a big joke. We're just gonna bury that. They're asking for a number of employees. Are there any calculations as far as the septic's concerned? Do they have a Title V? He buried the debris right next to the sewer cover there. We don't know if he's got a Title V. I don't know how many employees they want to have in there. Is that building tied into the same as the house? What's the capacity? They haven't provided it. They haven't provided anything as far as lot coverage is concerned. There is no, as Pat said, there's no parking on the site plan for the home. There's no room. They're using every inch in there. And when you look at historically, that's not the way this is operated. Even was described by the building commissioner as a mar and pa shop. So I ask you to read that affidavit. That's your baseline, and look at their site plan. And that is a substantial increase. And, yes, the business has changed, and yes, they put a smokestack up, but they paint cars saying, well, we won't let anybody in. Well, our clients commented and stated that they paint cars after 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Traffic dies down, and that makes a ton of noise, and it disturbs the grays right next door. Besides the odor, the noise. So, when they say, well, we'll shut down at 6 o'clock, what that really means is we'll continue to work, but we won't let any clients in. What good is that? This is substantially more detrimental than what is described as a mar and pa shop that is a legal pre-existing non-conforming use. And 35 vehicles in this site, there's nowhere to roam. And they're supposed to maintain it, the use on their own property. As you saw that delivery truck that was parked in the 12-foot right-of-way, that's not their property, and has to turn around and use the abutting property. And I don't care if the abutting property owner allows it. It's not allowed under the zoning ordinance. It's supposed to be contained on the lot. They're using the 12-foot right-of-way, which they do not own. They do have rights to go up and down it, but they're backing out onto it. It's not their property. It's not contained on their lot, which is required under the zoning ordinance. So as Pat said, you look at the site plan, what is proposed is substantially more detrimental to what the legal pre-existing non-conforming use was. And for that baseline, again, look at the affidavit and look at the cease and desist order. And I think it gives you a pretty good idea what was there. And then again, we've got the historical photos. It says 15 to 16 cars, not 35. And then it was one to sometimes 3 employees. They're asking for, I guess, 6 employees. So it's double the number of employees, significant more volume of work when you got double the number of employees, double the impact on the neighborhood. Much, much more detrimental. Mr. Alves, a long-winded answer to your question, but I hope I got you an answer.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any other questions you may have as well.
For Attorney Kenny?
You know, again, you know, I am reading the affidavit from Mr. Atwood. Again, Attorney Kenny, you know as well as I do, times have changed, right? He was a sole operator, maybe had 1 or 2 employees, talks about working on Saturdays, occasionally would work a full Saturday, and occasionally even work a Sunday. So defining the parameters is what we've been now tasked to do, right? So that Commissioner Florence can then come out and with a defined list of what the zoning allows. There is no, it was never, again, history has shown us there's no defined answer to that question. Now, we're tasked with having to do that, which is fine. I understand that's what we're here to do, except historically, again, things have changed. So I don't know what the answer is. To me, the answer is that Attorney Lawler and Attorney Nickerson and Attorney Kenny should figure this out and present this back to us in such a way so that we can then, you know, help to define it if there's other issues along the way here. But for us now to do that, it's, you know, it's going to be, in my opinion, tricky, given the historical nature of the property, the business, you know, and again, I'm not one way or the other necessarily, but it's, I don't know. We can't do that tonight, in my opinion. It's just so many hurdles here that we have to cross, so many T's to cross and I's to dot, that I think we're tasked here with almost a, you know, significantly challenging proposition. So,
If I just may quickly respond, I agree with it. A business has a right to grow, and things change, times change, but they're asking for 100% increase or 200% increase in the number of employees, more than double the number of vehicles that historically aerial photos have shown. So,
I guess what I don't know is what will appease the, you know, your clients and really the neighborhood, and I don't sense that it's a complete lockdown of the property. I understand that everybody, you know, it was pre-existing back from before anybody in this room lived there or used that area for business. It's just, how do we go ahead and do that at this point? You know, you have 2 different parties here that want to see something almost completely, not different, because I think there's a way we can find common ground. I don't know what that is. And so we can certainly define it, and somebody will leave, and you know, that can be, I guess, what we're tasked to do. I don't know. Does anybody else have any other input about?
We need to determine what the pre-existing level of use was, and then what triggered, where our expansion, what's our baseline before the expansion?
I agree, and yet when we read the affidavit, it's you know, I worked on Saturdays. I know Mr. Atwood. I worked with his son. I understand, you know, and he was coming and going, and you know, closed on a Monday if he didn't have it, you know. So again, we don't have his permit that was issued to him back in 1980, 90, whatever, that maybe spelled those things out. It didn't exist, as Mr. Florence indicated. We're not going to find that. So we have to now decide what those are going to be. And I don't know what is going to be appeasable for your clients.
well, Attorney Lawler and I have had some discussions on that, and unfortunately, what his client needs and what our clients want are 2 different things. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that. I just, you know.
Again, I think your base is that affidavit. And anybody that's gone out by that area, Mr. Bowden said he's been going by there for years, and he acknowledged he's seen a significant increase in activity there. That was again, a ma and pa shop. It is in a village business district that I think is about 60% residential and 40% business. So it's not down in the industrial zone, Thornton Avenue.
Of course.
This is West Barnstable.
Yep.
It's one of the more rural parts of villages in our town. They have no public water supply. And here you've got, yeah, maybe they're not banging metal, they're scraping off pieces of plastic, and they're washing them out the door onto the apron. They go down the apron onto the street, and they go into the street, and they go down to a stream down the street. And it's...
I get it.
The
And
volume
yet
of business is negatively impacting
I
the
understand.
neighborhood.
And again, Commissioner Florence indicated that that's, they're operating within the parameters of what is allowed as a non-conforming use at this point. So that's not, that's not obviously for us to determine that whether or not there needs to be mitigation of that kind of things. But
It's our position that historically, there's been not more than 3 employees.
Yep.
And on average, 15 to 16 cars. And we think that's your baseline.
Okay.
And then what is a reasonable expansion from there? More than doubling the number of cars and doubling the number of employees, and trying to say that that's less detrimental to the neighborhood, I think is a real leap.
Yep.
Well, I guess I'll follow on my earlier question. If in fact what's being proposed is an improvement on current conditions, I understand you don't want me to go there because you think that's the wrong way to think about it. I take your point, that if there was a historical level, there was a violation, I'm plotting this out, right? And now they're proposing something that's less than, say, the apex of the violation, but still unacceptable to your clients. Even if, let's say, the historical's here, but that's where we are now. But what they're proposing is, in fact, an improvement on existing conditions. And if the standard is what's being asked more detrimental, walk me through that analysis, if in fact it's an improvement. Now, if it was the same parties involved all along, I'd take your point. You can't exacerbate the violation just to arrive at something in the middle to say, I'm being reasonable. I get that point, but parties have changed. We have new parties coming into the property. They're actually trying to improve the existing condition. How is that more detrimental if I start with the current condition as the baseline?
Okay, I'll answer that. If they bring in 100 cars next week and they get cited, can they come back and say, well, current conditions are we have 100 cars on this site. We'll go for 75. That's an improvement.
No, I guess that would happen after we establish what Mr. Florence is asking us to do. Concrete,
But the point is, you can't look at current conditions, because current conditions are a violation. What is a legal pre-existing non-conforming is the baseline. That's the current condition you should be looking at, not the violation and then the lesser violation. So, yeah, they picked up some of the crap.
I hear you.
And they're talking about maybe cleaning up the yard, but again, the one constant is Mr. Sunderland. My concern is, who's the next tenant? My concern is, how long will that backyard stay cleaned up? I mean, who has that many autos in their backyard, and they're supposedly all his? Where does the auto body stop, other than they're going to put up a fence, and then you got cars lined up all through the backyard and pots and stuff. Good luck trying to enforce that. So
I understand your position. Thank you.
And if and when we do kind of come to some sort of an agreement, we would certainly want a condition that the backyard be used for normal residential purposes, no storage of unregistered vehicles, no storage of maybe more than one boat, because he's got multiple boats back there. He's got a Caterpillar or something that doesn't work. It's like, bring it back to what it was. They don't show any of that on that site plan. So, is that site plan reflective of what the current conditions are today? No.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, is anyone else from the public who wants to speak to this?
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Patrick Watson. I own 976 Main Street, which is the property behind both the auto body shop and, of course, Packet Landing Liquor Store. My biggest concerns are the right-of-way. There's always been things on there. In fact, right now, there's a huge dumpster right smack in the middle of it, so I can't really access my property as is. Granted, it's an empty lot. We've been absentee, but it's been very difficult for us to even access that property because generally when I go by there, there's stuff there. I'll also follow that just by saying real quick, I purchased the land in 1998, 1999, and I've been watching this property closely over those last 25, 27 years. And just to confirm with the aerial photos, I have absolutely never seen the amount of debris and the amount of cars that have been there over the last 5 to 6 years, regardless of a previous tenant. I'd get pictures from friends in the area showing me tractor trailers on my property. So although I do appreciate the fence and of course that vegetation buffer, it's great. These are steps in the right direction. I guess your concern is what you need to identify is how many cars are going to be too much for the burdening of this property, and more importantly, the neighbors of the property. And lastly, the right-of-way here on this particular diagram is different than the one that I have in the proposed site plan. The one that I have actually continues the fence right through the right-of-way. So I want to make sure and would only request that in any resolution, that the right-of-way is always clear so that I can access it. It can be used as intended and not just, oh, one day we'll just, they've never used it, so we'll just try to block it off. Because there will come a day when we will need access to our property. And so right now, again, on the site plan that I have, the fence actually cuts off that right-of-way other than this particular image here. So I'm not sure which is the correct proposal for that particular fence. And that's all. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, I do have a question. I have a question. I'll ask.
Yes.
Just regarding that 12-foot right-of-way, that's your sole access to the
Correct.
property?
Yes, to that, exactly. And again, there's always been, in fact, it used to be a grass piece of land there, but it's been completely, I don't know who decided to do that, paved over and forgotten about.
Yikes.
So, and it's okay, I've seen it over the years, and again, I haven't been using it, so I haven't been vocal until now when there's obviously other concerns to the community than just my right-of-way. But, you know, yeah, it was paved over without any request or permission, and now there's just constantly cars on. You've even seen in some of those photographs, the dumpsters that are, the cars that have been there over the last 5 to 6 years. Again, granted, prior tenant, fine. But I just request that that right-of-way be exactly that, a right-of-way, and that it does not get diminished to the property owner behind it, because that's all I have to get there. So.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you, appreciate it.
Good evening, my name's Edward Jay. I'm president of the West Barnstable Civic Association. I'm following up my, my testimony today with my letter to Chairman Dewey. The position of the Civic Association is that we want to set a firm number of vehicles permitted, reduce the number of days and hours of operation. And on a personal note, I've been by there. It's a lot better than it was before, but it still could be improved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Suzanne Jeffreyon. I own the abutting piece of property that has the right-of-way on it, North Side Village Plaza, 7G's Liquor Store. We've owned that property since 1984. So we've lived through Neil Atwood, who, when our well went bad, he gave us water. We put in a new well. I have that water tested. That water is fine. It is not contaminated. We lived through the previous tenant, and it was a challenge. This tenant is a vast improvement. They respect the right-of-way. They do not use it. They do not block it. A right-of-way has to be traversed. You cannot permanently block it. To have a car parked on the right-of-way for half an hour or a delivery truck, is not violating a right-of-way. So I just want to say I have 4 tenants in my building, the liquor store, acupuncture, Gina Salon, and Cape Annie's gift store. None of them complain about the activity at the auto body shop. And my tenants will complain, but they don't complain about that. So we are a direct abutter. We are a commercial building, which is different from a residential. I'll give everybody that. But it's a permitted use, just like our building is a permitted use. I've lived with complaints from this neighborhood since I started managing that building. Nip bottles on the side of the street. You know what? There's nip bottles on my street too, and there's no liquor store there. I'm not responsible for that. My liquor store tenants get deliveries at that building. They don't complain that the auto body shop interferes with their deliveries. I never get a complaint about that. So the complaints that people are raising, some of them are just to complain, I guess is what I want to say. The right-of-way is respected. I am going to move my fence. I tried to hire a fence contractor to move it to the far side of the right-of-way. Difficult to get people to do any work, but they respect my property. They are good neighbors, and I agree that you need to limit the activity, but they are allowed to do it, so let's give them some rules. And I know that this current gentleman is going to follow the rules, so let's just give them some rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public want to speak? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Nancy Traft, and I live at 995 Main Street in West Barnstable. But I'd like to read a letter that was emailed to Anna Brigham from my husband. He requested that I read it into the record. It's from Attorney Peter Sunderland. Dear Chairman Dewey and members of the board, I am a retired attorney from West Barnstable. My practice was located at 990 Main Street, West Barnstable, from 1979 to 2000. My office was directly across the parking lot from what was then Hootenan's Auto Body at 970 Main Street. In 1993, I purchased a home at 995 Main Street, located across the street from my office. My home at 995 Main Street is diagonally across the street from the auto body shop. In 1998, I began construction behind my home of the building that housed my law practice from 2000 until my recent retirement. Accordingly, I have had an opportunity to observe the auto body business at close hand for 46 years. Beginning in 2019, I observed the following changes at the auto body. There was an increase in days of operation from 5½ days a week to 7. There was an increase in hours of operation that extended beyond 5 o'clock and well into the evening. There was a large increase in traffic and congestion at the auto body shop. This extended into the parking lot of 990 Main Street. Delivery trucks for 990 Main Street were forced out into the Main Street Road layout due to the increased auto body business. There also appeared to be a big increase in employees from what was formerly, by my observation, limited to Mr. Atwood and 2 employees. Noise associated with the business increased. This was due in part to the increase in work out of doors. Mr. Atwood did work out of doors when the weather was good. It appeared he used the out of doors when he wanted to, but not by necessity. Since 2019, outside work has been necessitated because the indoors has been occupied by additional employees beyond the prior existing 2. The front and side of the body shop parking area was a mixture of pavement and dirt. In 2019, this area and more was paved without benefit of site plan review. No provision for handling of wastewater runoff was made. I never observed the former owner, Mr. Atwood, or his employees utilize the marked spaces in the adjacent 990 Main Street parking lot for parking their vehicles. This has occurred under subsequent ownership. The front and side of the business now contain more parked cars than I recall. The proposed site plan shows 35 spaces in total. None are attributed to parking for the 3-bedroom home, which is on the site. The plan calls for 2 parking spaces in front of the shop overhead door on the south side of the building. This is impractical because it will obstruct vehicles entering and exiting. Questions arise. Where will the homeowners' vehicles be parked? Where will vehicles obstructing the overhead door be moved when vehicles are being moved in and out of the garage bay? Why is there no provision for delivery trucks? Recently, there were 7 vehicles packed into the location where only 5 are shown on the proposed site plan as numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. At no time did I observe the rear yard packed with vehicles as proposed on the site plan submitted. I did observe some vehicles scattered about and a large sailboat in the rear yard of the auto body. It was not until recent years that I observed the rear yard of the residence filled with vehicles, structures, and equipment. Sincerely, Peter A. Sunderland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Roberta Goff, and I live at 1049 Race Lane in Marston's Mills. From the spring of 1974 to the summer of 1975, I boarded my horse at Olander's Stable, which was located around 1025 Main Street. Many times during that year, I rode my horse past the auto body shop at 970 Main Street. And as I recall, I never saw more than half a dozen cars parked at the auto body shop at any specific time, except for the Thursday night social gatherings. The premises was at that time kept orderly, and I never heard any appreciable noise. The expansion of use of this auto body shop overwhelms me. As a former retired health agent, I find its increased proposed use detrimental to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else would like to speak to this? We did receive 3 letters, one that was read in from Mr. Sunderland, one from the West Barnstable Civic Association, and one from Mr. Hendrickson. Anyone else want to speak to it? Board members, how would we like to proceed? I guess Attorney Lawler, if you'd like to respond.
Yes, since there's going to be a second meeting, I would like to respond on a couple of things. That a couple of the photographs that were presented by Pat, and I know it's not directed at the attorney, we're going to dispute some of the where they were categorized by the neighbor and some of the dates of them, but I think it's probably better to do that at the next meeting and to address some of the other comments that occurred. Just off the hand, they don't do any work on electric vehicles. You have to actually be licensed to do work on auto body on electric vehicles that are mainly done at the specialized places. My clients do not handle with the lithium batteries. They do not. Those will never be on the property. But I believe since we are going to have a continuance, I think it would probably be better to address those comments at the next meeting. And I will say, and I concur with John Kenny, that we did talk. My clients, though, certainly would be willing to meet or have just the lawyers meet and maybe try to narrow issues. So certainly we would be welcome to that. I know that I would like to come back when we're in person. I do also know that some people tend to go to Florida for quite a while, and I won't, and I'll work with John on his schedule if I may ask him for a date that he's available, because I know I don't want to be unfair in that regard, because then I'll never. When are you back? When are you back? I can do April. Florida too, even if it's in person. I'm not leaving until the 20th. Oh, even for the next meeting? Oh, April 9th will be the first in person when I could be here. Is that the same one you have? Yeah. Okay. That's all right. Could we do April 9th?
Yeah, I mean.
Was that going to be crazy with the other thing on?
No, I don't think so. I think we can do that. I mean, I guess.
We don't, but, just for a moment of
To be courteous to
clarification.
John, I didn't want to.
Of course, and understood, but I don't know if is it the purview of the attorneys to remand a continuance, or is it
We have to approve it.
we have to approve it, okay.
I'm just requesting, I know you have
He's
to
requesting.
request, yeah.
I mean, we could, we could deny it and go for a vote if we wanted to.
No, understood, yeah.
Just a few questions, Attorney Lawler. Were the septic flows calculated? Do you have that available?
No, we went to site plan and
It was requested in site plan. It was on the site plan review letter.
the septic flows?
Yes, it said you would work with Tom McKean to,
I actually, I'll have those to you on April 9th.
okay. And then, for whatever reason, there was no comment from the fire department on site plan. Was there no concern from the fire
The
department?
fire department had initial comments on the informal, and then I spoke with the fire department, and they addressed it, and they, the plan was approved.
Okay.
And again, this is obviously, and I want to be clear that right now, and for the past well over 20 years, there's been vehicles in the right-of-way. This proposal is to clear the right-of-way, so there'll be not, and we just heard from the neighbor who owns the fence, she's intending to move it out of the right-of-way. So that whole issue of the right-of-way, I think, if obviously on this plan, I know there's a lot of other issues associated with it, but I think that has become, or would become moot.
I think we'd prefer to see previous conditions and what your expanded conditions are looking like. It's very gray of.
Well, it's hard to show previous.
Date on this was what, 23, I think, that your plan, which was after the enforcement action, but before this tenant, or?
This plan with 35 cars has been developed after the enforcement action and in an attempt to codify and to what we talked about before, and is with in consultation with the new tenant, not the prior tenant. The prior tenant, I'm just going to bite my tongue, but it appears that everybody's happy that they're no longer there. And the new tenant, as you know, I know that Attorney Kenny has suggested that hasn't gone quite far enough, but as you know, the other people have commented, has made substantial improvements, and this is substantially improving on top of that. So that's what I'm getting at, and we'll have all that information for you.
So are you disputing the commissioner's enforcement letter that specified where pre-existing non-conforming levels of use were? Or is that our baseline?
I don't believe that's your baseline. I believe your baseline is the.
We have upheld that as the baseline.
Then I was not appealed. Then that is the baseline. Then.
So I think you need to recognize that as a baseline and ask for an expansion from there.
Okay.
And
Well, he talks about hours 7 to 7, and we were trying to be more accommodating than that, and so
that's fine. I mean, again,
but he doesn't get into specifics as numbers, and he doesn't get into that letter. So I can absolutely agree with that.
Okay. So do we want to continue to April 9th? Is there anything else that people feel is important that the attorneys come back with or address at the next meeting?
I don't. I just want to make one clarification, Chairman, that the informal report site plan discusses flow septic. Formal site plan does not.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
So it must have been addressed, but I just wanted you to speak to it.
Everything with Tom McKeon had been, that's what, and you caught me off guard there. We had addressed, the way site plan review sets up now, you have informal, and they bring up questions. And then I addressed those with Tom McKeon, I think both during the formal site plan review, but also over the phone prior to that to address any of his concerns. And when all the conversations were had, that at formal site plan, when Mr. McKeon was asked if there were any issues, I think he responded in the negative.
Okay.
So the only issue that came up at formal site plan, thank you, Aaron, I just didn't have it in front of me, was the issue that's before you now with from Brian Florence.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
One thing, and I can't speak for the board, this is just me personally. On the plan itself, I think would be very helpful to, there's been some comments about parking spaces in front of doors, the ingress and egress of cars from the back parking, fences being moved. I think it might be helpful just for us to visualize realistically the flow of traffic around there and what reasonably could be accommodated. And I don't know what that number is, but certainly to show gates, loading, unloading areas, employee parking, things like that. Even if they're temporary spots, just something to give a little clearer picture of what that site might look like.
Okay, and then one other thing I did want to point out, if you look at the, on this picture right here, the left front, the residential home does have one parking space, and there's only one person who lives there. So there is one, on that plan, there's one parking space that's not included in the 35. You can see it right out there, right in front of the house.
Is that where the boat is?
No, I don't think so. Well,
with any other photos you bring in, can you guys just put dates on them? There's
okay,
no
yeah,
dates
because
on
some of
any
those,
the photos.
yeah, because some of those photos that have came up as were recent, we contend were the prior tenant and not my client, and I'll address those on a one-on-one basis at the next hearing.
Just some of your photos too also just didn't have a year, but there's no reference of how.
Okay,
how
I'll
old
do
they
that.
were.
Yep.
And if you could address whether, sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
The section 20B4 applies.
I know, I'm absolutely going to address
Please
that,
do.
because
Now, we're throwing around the term expansion of use. I don't think that's necessarily, we want to establish what a baseline is before we even talk about expansion of use. I don't know we necessarily want to do an expansion of use, but we do want to codify what's there. Obviously, business isn't going anywhere, but there needs to be, well, that's what we'll discuss.
Well, and again, but it, under the case law, it's very clear that pre-existing non-conforming businesses can, become more busy. And that, is very clear. That case law has been around for decades. And, if you want, I can send you a short little legal memo on it, but that's.
That'd be helpful.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay, if there's nothing else, does someone want to make a motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue to April 9, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it is
Sorry about
continued.
the
Thank you.
confusion on it.
All right.
Sorry about that
I have to do this again.
Yeah, I gotta get a non-Mac.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we have no new business. Correspondence, Cape Cod Commission meeting agenda for January 30th, 2025 at 3 p.m. was sent to us. That's in the past. Cape Cod Commission continued hearing notice for the Wilkins Housing Project, or Housing Phase 2 project was Monday, February 10th, 2025 at 5 p.m. And we got a planning board notification for regulatory agreement for Shoestring Properties, February 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Believe we did, I can't look it up, but I think we did get a couple of things in the last day here. Upcoming hearings, we have February 6th, 2025, which is remote, March 12th, 2025 in person, March 26th, 2025 remote, and April 9th, we just heard is in person. I will make a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.